Hi everyone. So today in this video I am going to discuss about how to write a test plan. So in my previous video I have already discussed about what do you mean by test plan. So if you guys have not seen my last video, please check the test plan video and then come to this video. So now today's our main aim is to that how to write a effective test plan. Okay. So as we already know that, what do you mean by test plan? So test plan is a detailed document where we are document the test strategy, test objectives, then testing schedule, then how much time it will take to complete any testing, means estimation, then deliverable, everything we have to document on the test plan. Now there are some steps we need to follow or to write any kinds of test plan. So basically for write any kinds of test plan, we have to follow 8 steps. These 8 steps we have to follow. So the first step is that analyze the product. Then second, design the test strategy. Then third, define the test objectives. Then fourth, define the test criteria. Then five, resource planning. Number six, plan test environment. Then number seven, schedule and estimation. And the number eight is determine test deliverables. So these 8 steps we need to follow for write a test plan. Now I will discuss one by one for each and every these steps. So first, just the first point is that analyze the product. So what do you mean by analyze a product? Suppose just I am giving you one very basic example. Okay, suppose let's say this is one of my application. In that application, few fields are there. Like this is one, suppose this is the first name, this is the last name, and this is the phone number, this is the email ID, and let's say this is the password, and finally there is some login button is there. So just for example, so this is my application. So in that application, what we have to do whenever we are going for any testing, obviously we have to understand the flow. We have to understand the customer requirement. Okay, so until unless we are not getting that what is the customer requirement, then if we are checking, that is totally useless. So first we have to know that what is the customer requirements, mean as per the test plan or as per the product documentation, we have to review the product documentation very carefully, and then we need to know that how we can test our feature. Okay, so as of this application we have to know that. So let's say whenever we are testing that or whenever we are reviewing that customer requirements, if we are not getting any feature or any functionality, then obviously we have to contact with our developers, then we have to contact with our customer, then we have to contact with our product manager. Why? Because after connecting with the customer or developers or product manager, we can get more information about that functionality. So analyze the product means, suppose if I am telling you that without any information we cannot test any product, right? So without any information we cannot test any product, and that is not the effective way. So without any information, if we want to test any product, that is not the possible way. Okay, then what we need to do? So for testing any product, obviously first we have to thoroughly study our requirement. We have to thoroughly study our product requirement, right? So this is mean by analyze the product. So that is mean by analyze the product, means we have to analyze the product, means what the feature, what is the feature of that application, okay, what the requirement from the clients we are getting. So everything we have to analyze. Now few key points are there for analyze a product. Let's say, like, who will use the website? So whatever website we are developing, who will use that website? Then what is it used for? What is it used for? In which purpose we are going to use that? So these things we need to analyze. Okay. Then next point is that how it will work. How it will work. Okay. And we can say that what are software, or we can say hardware what are the software and hardware we are using, or the product hardware the product uses. Okay, so this thing we need to check for analyze the product. Who will use the website, what is it used for, how it will work, and what are software or hardware the product uses. Okay, so these 4 key points we need to remember or analyze any product. So we have to think about that. So whenever we are analyzing any product, analyzing means we have to checking everything. Who will use the website, and in which purpose the website is using for, and how it will work, and what the software or hardware we uses for that product. So everything we have to analyze very carefully. Okay, so that is mean by analyze the product. Now coming to the next one is that design the test strategy. So what do you mean by design the test strategy? So basically the test strategy is a high level document. The test strategy is a high level document, and who will create that test strategy? The test manager will create the test strategy. So test strategy is a high level document, and the test manager will create the test strategy. So whenever we are creating any kinds of test strategy, whenever we are creating the test strategy, then we have to follow few steps. So whenever we are creating any test strategy, then we have to follow few steps. So the step number one, we have to follow that is define the scope of testing. Define the scope of testing. Define the scope of testing. That is the first thing. And the second thing is that identify testing type. Identify testing type. And the number 3 is that document risk and issues. We need to document risk and issues. And then number 4 is that create test logistics. Create test logistic. So these four steps we need to follow for design any kind of test strategy. Okay, now what do you mean by define the scope of testing? What do you mean by define scope of testing? So define scope of testing means before the start of any test activity, scope of the testing should be known. So whenever or before we start the testing activity, then scope of the testing should be known, and you must think hard about that. Okay, so in that scope of testing, two types of scope we need to follow. That is, one is in scope. So one is in scope and another is out scope or out of scope. Okay, two scope are there that we need to follow whenever we defining the scope of testing. One is in scope and another is out scope. So in scopes mean, what do you mean by in scope? In scope means in any system, whatever component we are testing. Okay, so in a system, whatever component we have to test, that is mean by in scope. That is under the scope. So whatever we are testing in any component, that is under the scope. So that is mean by in scope. Like the functional testing. So functional testing, or we can say that any hardware, software, that is in scope. Or for example, we can say that functional testing comes under in scope. And out of scope mean, what do you mean by out of scope? So out of scope mean the components of the system that will not be tested and also need to be clearly defined. That is called as out of scope. So the component of the system that will not be tested also need to be clearly defined in testing. That is called as out of scope. Like non-functional testing, stress testing. Under non-functional testing, the stress testing, performance testing, database testing, that is out of scope testing. So first we have to go for in scope, then whenever we will get time, then we go for the out of scope. So basically we need to, define the scope of testing. Basically we need to go for the design state strategy, and under that design state strategy we have to follow the define scope of testing. And the second one is that identify the testing type. Okay, so what do you mean by identify testing type? Now we can say that the testing type is a standard test procedure that gives an expected test outcome. Okay, so testing type is a standard test procedure that gives an expected test outcome. So each testing type is formulated to identify a specific type of product bugs, but all testing types are aimed at achieving one common goal. Okay, so the common goal is that whenever we are hand over any product or any software to the customer, then that product should be defect free. So that is the main goal. So identify the testing types means we have to identify all types of bugs before hand over the software or the product to the customer. Okay, before releasing the product to the customer, we have to identify any kinds of bug. And also the identify test and how we can test. Whenever we are getting, or whenever we are releasing any software to the customer, then obviously we have to follow some kinds of testing. Like how we can get the bug, we have to go for unit testing, we have to go for integration testing, we have to go for system testing, we have to go for agile testing, we have to go for API testing, we have to go for install and uninstall testing. So every kinds of testing we need to do before releasing the software to the customer. Why? Because if we do that kinds of testing, then obviously we will get the bug and we can fix that bug before release the software to the customer, right? So that is known by identify the testing type. Okay, now the third point is that document risk and issues. So document risk and issues. What do you mean by document risk and issues? So document risk. So what do you mean by risk? So risk is a feature uncertain event with a probability of occurrence. Means whenever we are releasing any software to the customer, maybe there is some kinds of risk should be happen. Like so what are that risks? So suppose I'm giving you one example. Suppose the first risk is that team member lack of required skill for website testing. So which team members are working for the software, maybe some kinds of some lack of technical knowledge are there. So that means that team member lack of required skill for website testing. So that is one risk. And how we can overcome that? So go for any training course. Okay, so for that purpose, we have to plan training course to skill up your members. So that may be the overcome. So that is one risk, and that is overcome. And the second risk, the project schedule is too tight and it's hard to complete. Okay, so project schedule is too tight, so it's hard to complete this project on time. So that is the second risk. And how we can overcome that? So we have to set the test priority for each and every test activity. So if we give the priority or severity for any kinds of testing, then within that time we can update, or we can hand over the client or hand over the software to the client on time. And the third risk is that the test manager also has poor management skill. Maybe that is one risk. And how we can overcome that? So plan leadership training for the manager, then we can overcome that. And the fourth risk, we can say that wrong budget estimate. So whatever product we are developing, maybe the wrong budget estimate is there. So how we can overcome that? So establish the scope before beginning the work. So we have to discuss everything before beginning the work. Then we can overcome that. Okay. So document risk and issues means, so whenever we are developing any software, whenever we are testing any kinds of software, then we maybe for that time we can get some risk. Now risk is a future uncertain event with a probability of occurrence and a potential for loss. That is mean by risk. So when the risk actually happens, it becomes the issue. That is true. When the risk is happen, then it becomes the issue. Okay, so risk is a future uncertain event with a probability of occurrence and a potential for loss. So when the risk actually happens, then it becomes the issue. That is that is mean by risk. And whatever risk, whatever issue we are getting, we have to document that in our future purpose. So that's why the point name is that document risk and issues. And obviously, if we get any issue, if we get any kinds of risk, then obviously there should some overcome method, overcome feature. Okay, so that is document risk and issues. And the fourth one is that create test logistic. So what do you mean by create test logistic? So the test manager should answer. So in that test logistic, the test manager should answer some following questions. Okay, so which question the test manager will answer? Who will test? Who will test? And then we can say that when will test? When will test? Etc. So these are the test logistic. So test logistic means the test manager should be answerable. Okay, means who will test, the test manager will answerable. When will test, the test manager will answer. Okay, so that is known by create test logistic. Now coming to the third point of that, how to write a test plan, that is define the test objectives. So what do you mean by test objectives, or how we can define the test objectives? So test objective is a overall good and achievement of the test execution. So what do you mean by test objectives? So test objective means so the test objective means that the test objective is the overall overall goal and achievement of the test execution. So overall goal and the achievement of the test execution, or the test execution, is nothing but a test objectives. So what objectives we are following means the test objectives is a overall goal and achievement. Okay, so that is the test objectives. So the objectives of the testing is finding as many software defects as possible and ensure that software under test is bug free before release. That is the main aim of test objectives. So the test objectives is the overall goal and achievement of the test execution. And the objective of the testing is finding as many software defects as possible. So we have to ensure that the software under test is bug free before release. Okay. Now, so whenever we are releasing any kinds of software, for that purpose we have to do lots of testing, like functional testing. In that, under functional testing, we have to go for unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance testing, and also we have to do the regression testing, retesting, etc, etc. And also for the non-functional testing, we have to go, or we need to do the load testing, performance testing, stress testing, etc. So this should follow before the software released to the customer. So that is known by define the test objectives. And then coming to the next point is that define the test criteria. So define the test criteria means in which criteria we are following for any kinds of test. So mainly we are follow the two criteria, that is, one is the suspension criteria, and the second thing is that exit criteria. So these two criteria we need to follow for define the test criteria. So what do you mean by suspension criteria? Suspension criteria means if the suspension criteria meet during testing, the active cycle will be suspended until the criteria are resolved. If the suspension criteria meet during testing, the active cycle will be suspended until the criteria are resolved. Let's give one simple example. Suppose one tester has reported, let's say, suppose the tester has 100 test cases. Okay, so with that 100 test cases, let's say 40 test cases are fail. That means whenever the tester is testing, based upon that 100 test cases, the 40 test cases has been failed. Means for that purpose we have to suspend our testing procedure, because until unless the development team are fixed that 40 test cases, we cannot test any kinds of testing. Okay, so suspension criteria means, suppose in our hand or in the tester hand, 100 test cases are there, and when the tester is executing that 100 test cases, let's say 40 test cases are fail. If we get the 40% of test case fail, then surely we will suspend our testing, because until unless the developer are fixing that 40% test cases, until unless that the developer are fixing that 40% test cases, the tester will not test any kinds of testing further. So that is mean by suspension criteria. And also this is one important interview questions also. Maybe sometime interviewer can ask you, what do you mean by suspension criteria? Then you have to tell that if the suspension criteria met during the testing, the active cycle will be suspended until the criteria are released. Means if our hand 100 test cases are there, and whenever we are testing that 100 test cases, let's say 40 test cases or 40% test cases are failed, then obviously we will suspend our testing. And how much time we will suspend? Until unless the developer are fixing that 40% test cases. Okay, so whenever the developer will fix that 40% test cases, then again we will go for further testing. So that is mean by suspension criteria. Okay, and the second one is that exit criteria. So what do you mean by exit criteria? So exit criteria means 90% or 95% of all critical test cases must pass. Okay, so exit criteria means, in a very simple word, in a very simple sentence, 95% or 90% of all test cases, of all critical test cases must pass. Means in our hand, or in, suppose I am a tester, in my hand 100 test cases are there, and with that 100 test cases, 90 to 95% critical test cases must be passed. Then we can use the exit criteria. Okay, exit means we have to close. The criteria has been done, so we have to exit our criteria. When the criteria will be exit means whenever the 90 or 95% of all critical test cases must be passed, then we can go for exit criteria. And also exit criteria also one important interview question. So exit criteria means, in a simple sentence, if in our hand 100 test cases are there, then 90 to 95% critical test cases must be passed. Okay, then we can do the exit criteria. Okay, so now you are clear about what do you mean by define test criteria. Now next point is that resource planning. So what do you mean by resource planning? So resource planning means, so the resource planning is a detailed summary of all types of resources required to complete the project task. Okay, so resource planning is a detailed summary of all types of resources required to complete the project. Means, suppose, let's say this is one project. So in that project, how many resources are needed or how many resources are required, that planning is known as resource planning. Okay, so that is known by resource planning. So resource planning could be human, could be equipment, could be materials, etc. Means what are the resources are needed or what are the resources are required, that is known by, that planning is known by resource planning. So resource planning is a detailed summary of all types of resources required to complete project task. And resource could be human, equipment and materials needed to complete any project or complete any product. Okay. Now, now what do you mean by human resource? Human resource mean the test manager, tester, developer, then test administrator, then SQM members. And the system resource, what do you mean by system resource? Maybe the server, test tool, network, computer, etc. So this is known by resource planning. And then point number 6, plan test environment. What do you mean by plan test environment? What is the test environment? So test environment, what do you mean by test environment? In which environment we are testing. At a simple form, in which environment we are testing, that is called as test environment. So a testing environment is a setup of software and hardware on which the testing team is going to execute their test cases. Okay, so the test environment consists of real business and user environment, and also as well as physical environment like such as server. Okay, so what do you mean by test environment? So test environment is a set of software and hardware in which the testing team is going to execute their test cases. Okay, and what do you mean by plan test environment? So that, I mean, whatever we are planning, that means in the test environment, the testing team are going to execute their test case. Obviously we need to do some plan for testing that environment. So that is known by plan test environment. That means we can say that how we can set up our test environment. Okay, in which means in which environment we are going to test. Okay, so that is the planning, and that is defined on the plan test environment. And next one is that schedule and estimation. Schedule and estimation means, what do you mean by schedule and estimation? Whenever, suppose this is my project or this is my product, so whenever we are testing that product, so obviously we need some estimation how much time it will take to complete our test cases. Suppose for that particular product 100 test cases are there, so for that 100 test cases, how much time it will take to complete all the test case? So that is known by estimation. So we have to give some estimation. And what do you mean by schedule? Schedule mean in which time we are going to test, or in which time we are going to execute our test cases. Maybe by using manual, maybe by using automation. Okay, so in which time we are going to execute our test cases, that means we have to give some schedule. That is known by schedule. So schedule and estimation means in which time we are going to execute our test case, that we need to know and we have to document in our test plan. And estimation means for any software, for any module, for any functionality, how much time it will take to complete, or how much time it will take to complete our test case for particular module. So that time is known as estimation, and that is also we need to update in our test plan report. And next one is that determine the test deliverable. So test deliverable, determine the test deliverable means, so after testing what we are going to deliver, that test deliverable we need to update in our test plan. So deliverable means which we can deliver, or which are ready to deliver. That is known by test deliverable. So test deliverable is a list of all the documents, tools and other components that has to be developed and maintained in support of the testing effort. So for the test deliverable, we are follow three types of there. Three deliverable things are there, or three time, or in a life cycle we can, in a software development life cycle, the different test deliverable we follows in different phases. Like one phase is that before testing, and second step is that during testing, and the third thing is that after the testing, after the testing. So these three, three phase we need to follow. So before testing, during testing and after testing. So what do you mean and what we are going to deliver on the before testing? So before testing, what we are going to deliver? The test plan document. Test plan document. Test plan document. And also the test case document. Test case document. And the third we can say that test design specification, test design specification. So these are deliverable for the before testing. The test plan document we need to deliver before testing. The test case documents we need to deliver the before testing. The test design specification we need to deliver before testing. And then what we are going to deliver during testing. During testing, what we are going to deliver? Test script. Then simulator or test data, and the testability matrix, matrix, testability matrix. Okay, then error logs, etc. So these we are going to deliver during the testing time. And the third one is that after the testing. So after testing, what we are going to deliver? The test results. or we can say that's a test report. Test reports. Then defect report. Whatever defect we are found during the testing, that defect reports. Then third one is that uh, uh, release notes. Release notes, etc. So these we are going to deliver after the testing. Test report, test result, defect reports, release note. Okay, then test procedure guideline, installation. These we are going to deliver after the testing. So that is known by determine the test deliverable. So whatever deliverable things we are going to deliver in which phases, that are now we are very much clear about that. 3 phase we follow. One is before testing, then second one is the during testing, and third one is that after testing. So these are the effective way that how to write a test plan. Okay, so 8 steps we follow: that analyze the product, design the test strategy, define the test objectives, define the test criteria, resource planning, plan test environment, schedule and estimation, and determine the test deliverable. Okay, so now you are very much clear about that how to write a test plan. So that is for today's video. I think this video will be very helpful to you. So if you guys have any doubt, please comment me. If you guys like my video, one thumbs up, and share this video to your nearest friends, and subscribe to my channel EduPaat. So see you in the next videos with some another topic of software testing. Thank you.